Hey, good morning, everyone. If you are out in the foyer, we ask that you make your way inside here. It is a little past 11 o'clock this morning, so if you're out in the foyer, make your way to your seats. We have some students in here that I know that they either have lunch at noon or they have class at noon, and so our goal is to conclude this morning's lecture around that time. So good morning. My name's Kyle Stafford. I'm the president of Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College, and we are so glad that you have joined us on campus today for this inspiring talk by Dr. Tim Shriver. We're glad that you paused to be here. His work, he's been a leader whose work has touched millions of lives, and his insights are more relevant today than ever. Before we begin today, I would like to just pause. I see a couple of our tribal chiefs that are here. Billy Friend, Chief of the Wyandotte Nation, thank you for being here this morning. Chief Doug Langford of the Miami Tribe, and then also I believe Second Chief Roy Baldridge is here. Thank you from the Shawnee Tribe. Good morning, gentlemen. I'd also like to just pause and just take a moment to recognize why and how we are here this morning. Back in 1997, over 150 people, NEO alumni, friends, faculty, and staff came together to help raise $50,000 that was eventually matched by the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education matching program to create this lectureship endowment that has provided us here today for this occasion. Remarkably, more than 40 of the donors were NEO employees, which is pretty amazing, demonstrating their commitment to our mission and our students. Their generosity has allowed us to host events like today's lecture, where we can come together as a community to learn, grow, and be inspired by leaders like Dr. Shriver. We are deeply grateful for their support and for the ongoing continued support and contributions to enhance the educational experience here at NEO. At NEO, our mission is to promote excellence in learning, service, and leadership in a global society. Today's lecture on the Dignity Index is a perfect embodiment of that mission. The Dignity Index is not just a tool, it's a call to action. A reminder of the words and actions chose can either build a bridge or create divides. In a world where there is a need for mutual respect and understanding has never been greater, Dr. Shriver's work challenges us all to strive for a society that honors the dignity of every individual person. Dr. Shriver is an accomplished author, film producer, and speaker whose contributions to education, social activism, and philanthropy have widely been recognized. His deep commitment to fostering a world where every individual is valued and respected aligns perfectly with our mission here at NEO. Shriver serves as the chairman of Special Olympics International, a position he's held for over 2 decades, and look this up, which is an organization that was founded by his mother in 1968. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Timothy Shriver here today to share his insights on the Dignity Index, an innovative tool designed to encourage respectful dialogue and reduce divisiveness in our society. With further ado, please give a good Northeastern Oklahoma welcome to Dr. Timothy Shriver.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I always wanted to say that. Thank you, Dr. Stafford. Thank you all for coming this morning. It is a thrill to be here at NEO in Miami, right? Did I say it right? Come on, I want to hear it. Miami, right? Yeah, okay. I've been practicing that for like a month just to see if I could get it right. No, I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful for all of you. I know no one, as far as I know, no one has to be here this morning, and you're all here voluntarily. Is that true, Mr. President? Yes, okay. So I'm grateful. I really am excited to be here in this part of the country, in this part of the state, with people doing the work of education for people who need it, want it, deserve it, and are hungry for it, and to be in an environment where learning and the mobilization of goodwill and the resources to make a difference are very, very active and present. I've got a little taste of the campus in the last just few hours, and I was especially moved, Mr. President, when you mentioned that we're here because people 30 years ago took out $20 or $50 or $100 or more and made their own contributions, right? So we're linked to people who are no longer with us maybe in this dimension of life, people who maybe still are here, who made this kind of a commitment. And they, in the 90s, said, I hope, I'm going to write a check because I hope someday people like all of you will be able to sit in a room like this and have a conversation like this. What a beautiful tribute to them, and what a beautiful tribute to all of you that you're fulfilling their dream. Here's the short version of my presentation. I'm going to make a pitch for you to make explicit something you already know and believe. And that is that I'm going to take a chance and say that everyone in this room believes in human dignity. And I'm going to take the second chance is that most of us believe in human dignity, maybe all of us, but we don't necessarily know how to make that belief explicit. And so today's conversation, I hope it is a conversation, we'll leave some room at the end, will be focused on these words. How can I show that I believe in human dignity? In this time, in my life, in my relationships, in my training, in my teaching, in my learning, how do I show that I believe in human dignity? We believe, our little group, and it represents people from across the political, social, economic, cultural spectrum, believes that dignity has to be elevated in our discussion as the foundation of a new kind of patriotism. It's not that the old patriotism wasn't good. It's not that the old criticism of the patriotism wasn't good, but that we need something new. And it's not radically new, but it's new enough to invite us, I think, to challenge ourselves to try to believe in it. So let me start by sharing a quick story. Maybe. Do we have, there's only one clicker, and we will, okay, well, clicker? There we go. We're going to do it that way. Perfect. So a few years ago, as I was still working full-time in the Special Olympics movement, I decided to write a book, and I wanted to write a book about the difference that Special Olympics athletes had made in my life, what they had taught me. So I called the book Fully Alive because I felt like that's the way it felt when I was at Special Olympics events. And I went on a book tour, and I'm not selling the book, don't worry. There's no copies available, don't worry about that. But I want to share a quick story. So I'm on this, going around to different events, and I end up at, I'm not going to say where, and I'm going to do a little book signing at a hotel. And so I get in the elevator, go up to the mezzanine, and there's a guy in the elevator, cowboy hat on, cowboy boots, blue jeans, big, huge silver belt buckle. And he looks over at me. I push mezzanine. He says, "Anyone ever tell you that you look like a Kennedy?" And I was sort of distracted and worrying about my speech and stuff like that. And I said, the door opens. I said, "Yeah, I've heard that before." And he said, "Well, that must really piss you off." It's not that funny. But I wanted to share that because the context for what I'm going to share with you is I'm going to make a gamble. That little interaction is part of what we all do, and I mean all of us. We look at someone, we judge, we label, we often demonize based on the label, and then we exclude and we push out. Oh, he's one of those, no, we don't, no, that's not our kind, that's not our type, I don't, see how she, no, not going with it. See what church they go, see, no, see who they vote for, no. So these snap judgments, which are part of human experience, which we do all the time, when out of control, lead to serious problems. Our premise is that we're now in a state where the judgment sequence, from labeling to demonizing to excluding, has made us sick as a country. The data up here you can read any given day. You can pop up your phone and just get the news feed. This morning you'll get more up-to-date data than this. But I want to point out that almost all Americans think we're stuck. Almost all Americans think we're split, too deeply split. And in the middle, you'll see that almost a third of us aren't just angry at the other party or the other race or the other gender or the other ethnic group or whatever, but we're so angry that we've ended a relationship in our own families. No longer having Thanksgiving with him, right? They're not, we're having the baptism next month. No, you do not invite her. She'll ruin everything. So let's just keep her, That family, I know, but they moved. They've gone over the edge. So we're at the point where our politics is not just damaging our political system, it's damaging our emotional lives. Many of you are young students, I suspect. This data, to me, is heartbreaking. When I was a teacher back in the 80s and 90s, we were shocked to report to our Board of Education that 20% of our students were at risk of behavioral and mental health problems. The Board of Education was, I remember I presented the report, I think it was 88. 20%, we said. 1 in 5 are at risk? Are you sure? How do you know? What do we do? Now it's 1 in 2. Most of you who are here as first-year students, you've been here 3 weeks, you're just out of this demographic where 48, 49% of you or your peers have encountered the experience of feeling hopeless about yourself and about others. And I bring this data here not to remind you of something you already know, but to relate it not just to the mental health issues, but to the political and cultural issues we're facing that I'm describing. Here's our gamble. Here's our bid. And you can sort of do thumbs up, thumbs down on this, and I want that discussion. Our belief is that we have a single problem that we're not addressing. Arthur Brooks, the conservative columnist, scholar, writes that we have a cultural addiction to contempt. Not a cultural aversion. We don't demonize people who use contempt. We don't say no contempt at our dining room table. We don't say don't write with hatred. My mom used to say you can't use hate, the word hate, at our table. I don't know if anybody, some of you are as old as I am, but I was taught that. You can say you don't like someone. You are not allowed in this house to say I hate someone. Today, it's the opposite. If you don't say you hate someone, you get no attention. If you don't come up with a good smear, it's not even interesting to people. We have an entire business. We've calculated this in rough terms as a $2 trillion business that is trying to inspire in you today a sense of devotional anger towards people you disagree with. It's the algorithm combined with partisan news on both, by the way, both sides on all of this. This is not an agenda around any candidate. This is an agenda around our culture, both sides, trying to inspire you. Algorithm, partisan media, politics, working together in an unholy alliance that's goal is to make you so scared and angry at the other side that you do what? You keep coming back. Check your feed. Come on, check, quick, quick. What'd she say? Oh, did you see what do you say now? Right? Oh, I want to get back just to catch a quick look at the news tonight because it's almost like an addiction. Kara Swisher writes, I can't see it, that the algorithm is designed to seed isolation, outrage, and addiction. So when you think, as we all do, that those people are so horrible, part of the reason you think that is that you've been sold a product that you and I buy that tells you to think that. Contempt, simple. I figured I should add this slide because we're at a university. The definitions are important. A disdain or disgust for another person. That person is vile or worthless. And we also know that contempt leads to violence. We'll say a little bit more about this, but the data shows it doesn't just lead to violence in political or cultural life, it also leads to violence and conflict within our personal lives. That's why that data from young people is so important. You've seen this every day, but here's what it looks like. I mean, this tape could go on for hours, right? Any of you young people that are getting your news from social feeds, this is or watching, and the truth is that posting this gets you likes, right? So this is how the cycle tends to operate. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I want to get to the solution. We studied this for a couple of years with a whole bunch of people. We had young people, elementary and middle school age kids. We had community workers. We had faith-based leaders. We had scholars and all kinds of political analysts and pollsters and the like. And we found these folks who had done the resolution of conflict in post-war environments. South Africa after the war, Northern Ireland after the war. And what did they conclude? They concluded that the only way to heal the deep wounds that come from contempt is by helping people treat each other with dignity. So Donna Hicks, this writer, says, the single most powerful force motivating you. Now, you might say, I want to be seen, I want to be loved, I want to matter, I want to do well, I want to be successful, all those things. She would argue that underneath of all those is your desire to be treated with dignity, my desire to be treated with dignity. And the minute I insult your dignity, there's an almost involuntary reaction. Revenge. You don't have to act on it, but you feel it almost immediately. If I were to insult whatever your political faction is, your almost instinctive reaction, like hitting your knee with a reflex thing, is to go boom, kick back. So this, we decided, was critical insight, dignity. The mutual recognition that we all want to be seen and heard and listened to. That when I see you, no matter how much we disagree, I see myself in you. Contempt is, we disagree, I'm better than you. I'm above you. You're not worthy. You're evil. So what do you do with an insight like this? Well, this is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He was one of the founders of the anti-apartheid movement in the country of South Africa. He led a revolution that allowed for a democratic transformation of the country. And I was at he was an Anglican archbishop, and I was at a talk he gave similar to this size room, and someone gets up at the end and says, Archbishop, he says, don't you have to conclude, based on your life, the brutality of all these differences, don't you have to conclude that evil is more powerful than good? And the archbishop replied, no. Evil is not more powerful than good. And then he kind of giggled and he said, but it is better organized. So we take it, I'm here at NEO, and this is not an exaggeration, to ask you to join me in organizing around a principle of dignity for good. Because if we don't organize a counterforce, the other force will win, not because it's more powerful, but because it's better organized. So that's why we built this Dignity Index. You've all got this in your, I hope, in your seats. I'm going to go quickly through it. This is about a single issue. It's not that we disagree. So in this room, I'm guessing I probably disagree with half to two-thirds of people on, let's just say, the border. You're all thinking, does he really disagree? I mean, how could anybody disagree? Okay, so let's just take it on faith that maybe some of us disagree on the border. This index will do nothing to help us resolve what should happen on the border. It's not about that. So if you're thinking, how do I advance my position, or how do I prove that he's wrong on the border, this won't help. Here's what it will help with. How I treat you when I disagree. How you treat me when you disagree with me. That's the only thing this measures. From 4 down, and by the way, this, for the social scientists, this has been normed and validated from a social science perspective. So we have some degree of confidence that what these words say is what they mean, and that people can see it over and over again from different political perspectives and make the same conclusion. 4 down is decreasing levels of dignity and increasing levels of contempt, going from we're better than those people all the way down to they're not even human. We got to destroy them. And going from 5 up is increasing levels of dignity that starts with kind of an equal time. Okay, I don't agree with you, but you get your 10 minutes, I get mine. All the way up to, no matter what, I see the dignity in you the same I see it in myself. So the scale is designed to enable us to evaluate when Vice President Harris or former President Trump, when they say something, or when Governor Stitt or his opponents say, or when the president says something, or when I say something, or when your husband or your wife, or when your roommate, or when your cousin who comes over on the weekend says something to you, You could actually say, oh, that was a 3. Now, you may laugh, but I'm going to bet that at least a few of you are going to do this within the next day or two. Oh, Mom, that was a 6. That was good. You're doing better. I just got trained in this thing, Mom. You know, you got to raise your game, because when you talk about those people, we got to get you up in the 5 and 6 range. Okay, so we're going to have a little test, right? We're at school. We get to have a quiz, right? Here's your first quiz. You got to score this. Get the scoring sheet out in front of you. Hold it up. Take a look. This is John McCain in 2008. He's the Republican nominee for President of the United States. And he says, Dr. Stafford, will you read that out loud for me?
I will always believe that America offers opportunities to all who have the industry and will to seize it. Senator Obama believes that too.
Okay. Scoring, gang, what do you think? Shout it out. No wrong answers yet, because this is your first test. 6. 6. That's a 6. Good for you. We always talk to the other side, searching for values we share. So he's identified that there's a set of values that he and his political opponent have in common. Right? Getting the hang of it? Here we go. I'll read this one just because. It's tempting as a Republican to look at the chaos and infighting on the other side and be amused. And it is amusing. It's very funny, except for the fact that those people are ruining our country. Now, we put it Republican or Democrat because it doesn't matter. You can find this quote on both sides. What do you think? Dun, 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 dun. What's the Jeopardy thing? Dun, dun, dun. It's a 2. It's a little bit of a telegraphing when you see the word ruin. That's a 2. Now look at 2. When you heard that before, I'm gonna just make a blanket statement. Everybody's heard that before, what I just had up on the screen. Now look what's just south of 2. What's the next level down? Violence. So when we use 2 language, don't be surprised that some people hear violence as the next step. We think that it's just speech. We're just talking about how bad they are. After all, they are horrible, right? I mean, we're not saying anything is not true. But that level of contempt is just a hair's breadth away from, I got to take the law in my own hands. That's for all of us. Again, I'm not, there's no, here's a quote from a Rwandan political leader about 25 years ago. We the people are obliged to take responsibility ourselves. That sound American? Don't be afraid, anyone whose neck you do not cut is the one who will cut yours. How do you score it? That's a 1. They're not even human. Now you say to yourself, well, that's a genocide. Yeah, that's a million people got killed after that quote. Within about, don't quote me, within about a month. Butchered after that quote. And you say, well, we don't have that problem. Yeah, we don't have that problem, except we find ones almost every month in political discourse when we're scanning social media and the statements of political candidates. One language. They're not even human. Okay, here's one of my favorites, just because I found this picture on the internet and it really looks cool. This is Pharrell Williams. He wrote the song Happy. You know, do you know the one? You happy, you know, without a roof, that one? Yeah. So he was on a talk show, I think it was The View or something like that. And here's what he says. We're not going to read the whole thing. I'm telling you the world is a beautiful place, but it does not work without empathy and inclusion. Down here is what's important. I'm choosing empathy, choosing inclusion, choosing love for everybody. Even when I disagree, this is before we wrote the index, so I didn't set this up. Even when we disagree with someone, I'm wishing them the best. Now, self-question. No answer has to be given. How many times when you really disagree with someone are you able at the exact same time to wish them the best? Just do it in your own mind. somebody right now, do you really wish them the best? It's hard. How do you score this? That's an 8. Even when I disagree with you, I know you were born with inherent dignity, and I'm going to treat you that way. I'm not going to agree with you. I'm not going to allow what you believe. If people say, well, what about a criminal? Maybe the criminal should be incarcerated. That's okay. But when they're incarcerated, do they deserve to be treated with dignity? I would hope that many of us might aspire to feel that way, even if our emotions get the best of us. So here's where we're going. Here's the project, and how are we doing for time? Sorry. 20 minutes. So we piloted this index in Utah in the 2022 midterms. These are all students at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. We trained them over the course of a summer on how to use the index, tested them, evaluated them, and they come from across the political spectrum, and we determined after a short training that they could score objectively. They wouldn't be, if they were a Trump voter, they wouldn't just skew the Trump score higher, or if they were a Biden in those days voter, they wouldn't favor Biden, give him a better grade than he otherwise deserved, or any other political figure. And we determined that they could reliably score text. And we scored the Senate race there. We scored 4 congressional races. We released scores every week. Local media covered it. The candidates started talking about it a little bit, and we determined, hey, there's something here. But here's what the students said to us. They said, well, we're all interested in politics and that kind of stuff, but this index thing is much more interesting to us for our own relationships and lives. We called it the mirror effect. We didn't anticipate this. People held it up, took it home, and they went, I'm using this with my dad calls every Sunday, and we haven't been getting along. I'm going to hold this up when I'm talking to my dad and try to use better language when we're disagreeing about politics, about anything. And people said, yeah, well, last night I had this fight with my wife, or, I'm not talking to my cousin anymore. And one kid said to me, I posted yesterday on social media. I posted this, blankety blank Republican. I'm defriending you. You're dead to me. And she said, like, on the spot, I'm going to go take it down. Like, I don't want to be that person. So all of a sudden, in seeing the potential to raise your language, people all of a sudden sort of became almost intuitively motivated. So I want you to think, like right now as we're talking about this, is there someone in your life, bring to mind, with whom you are in a contemptuous phase of your relationship, however close or distant? It might be your supervisor, it might be someone you run into here on campus from time to time, it might be someone you've known your whole life. Is there someone with whom you're in a contemptuous relationship? And as you look at this, might you begin to think there's ways I could speak to her or him with a little less contempt? If that's true, then you're experiencing the mirror effect. And what we found is that the mirror effect goes across many, many different dimensions, and I'm going to share with you a few. Here's what the kids and the teachers that looked at this taught us. On the back, you'll see these 6 skills. And we've distilled them as skills that help you go up. So it's not easy to go up. When you think someone's a real jerk, and you think they're doing something that's evil, and you think they're contemptuous, it's not easy to use 6 language or 7 language. But if you regulate, when you get upset, if you take a deep breath, if you count to 3, you got a better chance. If you ask questions of curiosity, tell me more. That's the big one, by the way. If you want a little trick, if you're in a contemptuous conversation, just those 3 words I have found, this is not scientific, change the conversation. Tell me more, Dr. Stafford. Person's almost immediately disarmed. You're actually asking instead of countering. Listening skills, acknowledging skills, focusing on the idea, not the person. We like to say it's okay to disagree vehemently with the principles, the programs, the policies, or the outcomes. So we go back to the border. Here's what you could say to me. This is the state of the border today. The facts support this. The outcomes have been this. The policies that have created the situation are these. You don't ever have to say you jerk. In fact, when you add you jerk, you make it much less likely you're going to convince me. So if you want to change whatever's going on the board, or anything else, by the way, adding you jerk, you idiot, you fool, how dare you, how could you, where did you come from, what's your problem, adding all of that contemptuous language makes it less likely that you're going to prevail. And that's why we have the politics we have today. Almost no movement in the political base of either party. Almost none. Not because people aren't screaming and yelling about these issues, but because people are screaming and yelling at each other, which makes it almost impossible for anybody to move. So these are the skills. I'm going to show you how this is being adapted in one school district. So here's the Salt Lake City School District, which has taken the Dignity Index, and they're putting it up in classrooms. So faculty, any faculty in here? Raise your hand, please. Okay. So here's the offer. If you have any interest, or if you think it would work, take a shot at putting this on the wall where you teach. Now, you may be teaching animal issues, you may be teaching land issues, engineering issues, all kinds of different things. But this applies to all of it. So the rule they have in Salt Lake City is 5 and up. So it's kind of easy. It looks like 6 when I do it this way, but it's supposed to be 5 and up. Try 5 and up today. Like in some conversation, just pull this little thing out, like on the phone, or and just see if you can stay at 5 and up when you're in a disagreement. We think there's a lot of potential to teach the index to kids at very young ages. Teach second graders when they're when someone breaks, you broke my pencil. Okay, how do I catch you, jerk? I want to fight you back. I'm going to break your pencil. All those. So there's opportunities throughout the life cycle. We don't have to wait to be in political office to learn how to use dignity phrases. Here's an example of a young kid, very sophisticated acquisition of skills. Let's play this. Whoops, can we go back? Let's see. Nope. Back. Okay, here. Listen closely. Can you hear it? I know you can't. It's not playing. Okay. All right. Well, you're missing a beautiful video. We'll see if the rest of them play. We'll come back to this. Here's the offer for you guys. The University of Utah, they call themselves Students for Dignity. Can we have a chapter of Students for Dignity here at NEO? I don't know. It would take 1 or 2 of you or 3 of you to go, this is important to me. I'm going to help organize this. Not Tim, not the president, not the deans, not the faculty. Are there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students who would say, yeah, we want to organize a chapter. We'll learn the index. We'll use it on campus. We'll share it with others. We'll promote it on social media. We'll develop a TikTok channel, whatever. So Students for Dignity. We could have a dignity code of conduct. We have a lot of campuses, not here, I gather, but a lot of campuses in this country where contempt has become the language of disagreement, hatred, violence even. And so some campuses are starting to talk to us about, could we use this as part of our code of conduct on campus? Others are saying, like I suggest this today, like next week we have a presidential debate. You could organize a debate watching party and score it in real time. And the president will come and you can see how he does. And where there are lots of different ways to introduce dignity into the content of our instruction. We can study social studies when we study civics, we study the past, we study history, we study engineering and other arts and stuff. We can also include ways to do this in classrooms. So this is, if you will, a slide I'm sort of offering for conversation as we go forward. I'm going to guess that, oh, it works. This is from the University of Utah.
We quickly, in this work, realized we saw things completely different. Not conservative, not liberal.
And in the beginning, I found that difficult because I was convinced that I knew what was right. I know the Dignity Index, and he just doesn't understand it.
I even hit her with the labels. She's woke, and she just didn't get it.
It took me a while to learn that he had his own perspective that was incredibly valuable to what we're doing, and it's completely necessary because
So these are, these are live human beings in this moment. This was just recorded a couple weeks ago who are working on this, right? You can hear a little bit of it's not easy. When we've fallen as far as we have culturally, it's not easy to dig our way out. But they're working at it, and I think it's making a difference. I mentioned earlier that we're also been invited into the business world. Because why? Because the business leaders that we met have said, we need to be better problem solvers. We need to onboard young people who are joining our teams and working with people, my age, baby boomers, and they're not getting along, and they're not understanding each other. There's a lot of contempt. So this was training we did for business leaders, and they didn't want anything to do with politics. So here's what they asked us to use. We used Ted Lasso. Anybody see Ted Lasso? Come on, if you're nice and kind and friendly, you saw Ted Lasso, right? So Ted Lasso is about a coach. We're going to do one more quick scoring, but you'll see this is what business leaders, Fortune 500 companies, they're doing in the workplace. They're scoring this piece. So in season 3, Ted's assistant Nate quits because he feels undervalued and he's angry, and he goes to the other team. This is in the UK, and Ted is a happy kind of joyful guy, and so this is a clip of Nate at a press conference commenting about Ted taking his team to train. They went and trained in the underground in London. So let's see if this one works. Sorry for the bad language. So then, whoops, they probably have to train in the sewer because their coach is so blankety blank. Score? They have to train because their coach is so bad. Let's use that word. How would you score that? That's really a 4. I'm good, he's bad. Okay, now here's what I think is really great. Here's Ted Lasso's response. They ask him the next day. So he takes, you're a rotten coach. Now, again, I don't know if you picture yourself at this podium after someone confronts you with that quote. How do you think you'd score? Whoops, let's see. Nate the Great, he's the same on the pitch. He's a junkyard dog and smart, and they're lucky to have him over there at West Ham. I wish him the best. What do you think? It's a 7 in part because the conflict with him isn't direct. It's indirect. If Nate had just punched him in the face and he said that, that would be an 8. But the point here is, here's the point. This is not impossible. And everybody talks about all that, hate sells. It does sell, but so does this. This is the most popular streaming show on television last year. This stuff sells too. So we don't have to, here's politics. People say, well, politics is hopeless. These people are horrible. It's not true. I mean, they often behave in ways which we are frustrated by. I'm frustrated. But it's not impossible. This is us presenting to Utah League of Cities and Towns. We've done the same thing in Pennsylvania. We're doing the same thing in school boards. Here's a good example. This is a guy running for the school board. He puts out this thing, I'm running for the Utah Board of Education. This is John Arthur. We teachers have to live out these choices every day, but when culture warriors like my opponent get elected, they make the decisions without ever having to experience the consequences. Now, one of my colleagues got this email, and she wrote to John, and she says, I'm a huge fan of yours, but I was disappointed to see this text from your campaign, a 4 on the contempt scale. You can send this to anybody you get a social media post from. I know it can be difficult to differentiate yourself, but you've got a lot going for you. And then she offers him a rewrite. You could have written it like this. And she sent this to him. We teachers have to live out the consequences, but there's no attack on the individual on the other side. So here's what John Arthur does. He writes her back, you're right, I didn't write that. And then he cut this little ad. Let's see if we can make it play. It's just 30 seconds, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Hey everyone, this is John Arthur, your candidate for the Utah State Board of Education. Videos of my testimony in the U.S. Senate have popped up on YouTube. And while I'm grateful my love for teaching is being amplified, my positive message gets lost in titles like Teacher Schools Republican or Teacher Shuts Down Senator. I'm a public school teacher, shut down nothing. I'm starting conversations and finding solutions. Schools Republican, please. I'm on a mission to make public schools strong. Speaking of Republicans, they had their primaries this week and chose Molly Hart as their candidate in this race. Let me tell you about my opponent. Dr. Molly Hart is a smart, capable administrator and public servant. Not only that, she's a kind and decent person too. Our visions for the future of public education are very different, but I've got nothing but love and the utmost respect for her. And this November, the voters in District 7 will have 2 experienced educators to choose from on their ballot. That's how it's supposed to be. I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for Utah students, teachers, families, and public schools. I'm a public school teacher, and running in a political race has me wanting to say all the things I say to my 6th graders when they try to distract me. Thank you. I got no time for nonsense. The future needs us to focus. We're too busy being great to get distracted. We can do this, so let's go.
So you can say that's not Trump and Harris and all, but that's a political, to me, that's a great political ad. I don't know anything about the race. I don't know what Dr. Molly Hart, but to me, that is great politics. And so when we give up on whole classes of people like our politicians or like the other side of, I just want to say, we don't have to do that. Here's me with Governor Stitt. We're not going to get into that. I want to point out, we can do that in the Q&A if we need to. But here's my pitch. Look, it seems like that you can't change anything. I'm too small. We're just here. It's just NEO. We're in Oklahoma. We don't have any power. We don't own media stations. We don't have billions of dollars. We can't control. Yes, you can. That's not true. Culture changes with small numbers of people organizing together to make a difference. That's how culture always changes. And all we need is about 10%. You know, so 10% of this country is a lot, 25, 30 million people. That's a lot of people, but that's a small number. Organized to say, I will no longer give to your campaign when you bring me that hatred and contempt. I no longer will click on your posts when you bring hatred and contempt. I no longer will tune into that TV station because it's full of hatred and contempt. That action alone by a small group of committed citizens, as Margaret Mead said a generation ago, is enough. I get my inspiration. I'm not going to have time for the Special Olympics video, but we invite you to take the pledge. Go on the website. When you get on the website, you can take the pledge. You can play Dignity Daily. That's our game. Brando, is Brando still here? Or maybe you have to go. You play. He's not that good yet. But he's willing to challenge anybody here over the next. It's like you get 3 quotes, and you get to score them, and you get to see if you get them right. It should take you anywhere from 1 minute to, if you're obsessive about the mistakes you make, it might take you 10 minutes to play in. But Brando's challenged the president to a 2-week challenge to see who gets more scores right. I would invite, this could be the first campus in the world where you have a campus-wide Dignity Daily contest where you get to share with each other how you're doing. And I leave you with my inspiration. Special Olympics athletes all over the world get knocked down, get pushed out, get laughed at, get ridiculed, get told they don't belong, they don't have value, they can't fit in. And that's what we're doing to each other all the time. You don't belong, you don't fit in, you don't have value, you're no good, you're evil, you're destroying this. Click, 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 click. These folks go right to the race. Say, I don't care how you're characterizing me, I'm going to prove to you I have value. And I'm going to treat you with value too, with dignity. And every single 100,000 Special Olympics events a year, every one starts with these words. You see here Ajara Silla. She would have said these words before she ran her race and had her photographer capture her finish. She would have said, let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. We need Americans who are brave right now. Sometimes that'll mean bucking your own system, breaking out of the trap we're in. But the stakes are too high to be a conformist, in my view. Ajara is not a conformist. You see what place she finished? Can you see at the bottom? 7th. So the world told her she came in 7th. And you know what she said? That's fine with me. I'm okay with that. I gave it everything I have. I didn't hold back. I'm not afraid. I ran my race the best I could. I feel like she's telling us all that just with the way she's standing. Why can't we be just half as strong and brave as Ajara? We can is the answer. And I hope here on campus we can find ways to work together. Thank you very much. And well, thank you. That's my, yeah.